Almost. Major. Holy fucking shit, this is major! Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Almost Major, where we talk about the many major studios and the films they release. Today we are on our final episode in our Lionsgate miniseries for Wonderland 2003. My name is Kevin Tudor. I'm here with Charlie Nash.
Hello.
And joining us once again is our super special guest from straight out of the 70s. It is Dan Mecca. I could not think of a better segue. How are you?
An honor. This movie we're talking about is set in the 80s, but
It is?
An honor. And yeah, because it happened in 81, I think.
Shit.
Right? The Wonderland murders, I believe, happened in 81.
Well, you went back into the past.
It's the remnants of the 70s. That's what all these hippies, the drugs.
That shows you how much I learned from this
Really.
movie, so that'll...
President Reagan, we should just start. President Reagan was right, okay? Wonderland murders. It was the fault of the hippies.
I feel like I unlearned things from this movie, and then I had to go relearn them online afterwards.
Now we are talking about we're just gonna pivot and talk about Boogie Nights.
Of course.
But yeah, Dan, everything good? We're all good? Okay.
Good, man. Thanks for having me. Always an honor to be here. Happy to talk about the 20-year anniversary, Wonderland. Here we go.
Somebody
Let's
has
get it
to
going.
do it.
Val Kilmer. We'll talk about it.
It's pretty
Val
good.
Kilmer.
But yeah,
Pretty good.
Wonderland,
Pretty good.
2003. This premiered at TIFF in September 2003. Opened limited October 3rd, 2003 in 5 theaters. Maxed out at 195 theaters. Budget was $5 million. The fact that this budget is only $5 million is kind of insane. With the first 30 minutes has 97 needle drops, I think, and then just everybody that's in it, it's pretty insane.
Maybe, remember hit clips?
Yes,
Where you just put in 15, 30 seconds of the songs? Maybe they were hit clips. I don't know.
They didn't have to pay as much.
That's actually not. That might not be wrong. I think that's wrong, but it might not be wrong.
We play
probably wrong.
Let the Good Times Roll. It's you use it for this amazing scene, and it's just what an incredible needle drop, one of the best intro songs of all time. No, we play the first 5 seconds and then dip the volume down to barely audible, and then we play 3 more seconds of it afterwards. It's okay, 10 grand, I don't care. Where was I at? Opening weekend, 91,000, and domestic and overall gross of 1.1 million. I forgot to mention this, but top 5 films that weekend is School of Rock.
Hell yeah.
Out of Time. There you go. Yeah.
Carl Franklin, shout out, B-side.
The Rundown.
Yep.
Oh, good movie.
Under the Tuscan
You know what?
Sun.
This is a good top 5 so far. Keep going.
And Secondhand Lions.
Underrated movie. That's that is a strong 5. Those are all very solid films, I think.
Yeah,
I got to go to the movies twice this weekend. This is actually kind of an iconic
Out of
weekend.
time, yeah.
First 2 times I was ever able to go to a movie by myself with friends. First was School of Rock, and the second was The Rundown, and I felt like the coolest
The
fucking
Rundown.
12-year-old.
Good, solid movie, The Rundown.
It's not bad.
It's far and away the best Peter Berg film. I mean, if anyone says Patriots Day right now, I'm going to log off.
Deepwater Horizon is good.
I've heard that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, Deepwater Horizon is a good
Never
movie.
saw it.
Though I think you're right. I don't know that he's ever made one as good as this. Yeah.
I think he shadow directed Corky Romano.
Rocky Road? You got Rocky Road? You got mint chocolate chip? Sure. Our flavors are clearly listed.
All right, then go ahead and give me one of those.
Oh, that movie is You Suck. I love Corky Romano. Me and Jordan, do you know this about me and Jordan? We bond over how much. We started the film study together, as you probably know.
Because after watching Corky Romano, yeah.
We bond over how much we love Corky Romano, which is objectively one of the worst movies ever made. I mean, there's no question.
Owned it on DVD.
It's just, I love
only went to
that
go
movie.
see The Two Towers, The Lord of the Rings. I only went to go see that with my brothers because Blockbuster was right across the street, and I would buy Corky Romano on DVD.
You guys
That's what happened.
want some cookie? That's not unlike we were talking about Liar Liar before we started recording. Not unlike Liar Liar. I could probably recite every line where he's on coke. He's like, "You have a question? You do? You don't? You do?
I should buy a boat.
I should buy a boat." Oh God, it's a great.
It's getting hot in here. Makes my pants hot. I don't know. I don't wear jeans. Question? Yes. Question.
You do? Chris Kattan, man, just didn't. Yeah, just didn't. That was the shot. That was the shot.
He's like one of my favorite SNL people.
I know.
But...
built for that show. Really one of those guys like built for, you know what I mean? Like
sketch,
built
yeah.
for like
that's it.
4 minutes.
Although,
and you're like, I'm getting a little tired, you know, and then it's over. Right, sure, Night at the Roxbury. Sure.
He was here live like a month ago, and I was like, oh, I'm obsessed with SNL. I gotta see what his stand-up is like. I couldn't even finish the 10-minute YouTube video, so...
his stand-up, I think I've heard, is not...
He's just like, I was on SNL.
It's quite different, yeah.
Keep clapping, yeah.
Bring it on. But a good top 5. That's heartening. That's a heartening top 5.
Yeah. Number 1 song in the U.S. this week is Baby Boy by Beyonce featuring Sean Paul. Number 1 song in Canada this week is Someday by Nickelback. Finally, Canada respects Nickelback.
Thank God.
It took them long enough. Plot description from Google. In this fact-based film, okay. That is the weirdest way to say that it's like based on true events.
Based on facts.
I know, but yeah. In this fact-based film, just like
technically any film could be fact-based.
Sure.
If you want to play that game.
There is a city called Los Angeles.
Yeah.
There is a Wonderland Avenue.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many ways to worm your way
John
around
Holmes
that.
was a porn star.
Yeah. John Holmes, played by Val Kilmer, is one of the most successful porn stars of all time. But when his rampant drug abuse forces him into prostitution, both his disapproving wife, Sharon, played by Lisa Kudrow, just saying disapproving wife, it's just like, John.
It's a little reductive, yeah.
He never makes it home.
You're dating a 16-year-old again.
John. Are you being a little stinker, John, again with the drugs and heroin?
Played by Lisa Kudrow, and his 16-year-old girlfriend, Dawn, played by Kate Bosworth, are on the verge of leaving him. As John sinks lower and lower into Hollywood, California's criminal underworld, he meets a seedy drug lord played by Eric Bogosian and finds himself caught up in a tragic chain of events. This makes it sound more like fun, where it's just like both his wife and his underage girlfriend are about to leave him. Yeah.
Yesterday things were going fine for John Holmes. Today is a different story. It's like the family film.
Can we also? What was the number where it like the text comes up and it's like legend has it he's had sex with
14,000,
12,000, or is it 14?
That's not possible.
Well, Will Chamberlain said more. I think. What was Wilt's number? Wilt famously said
he was like 500,000 somehow.
Yeah, like a lot of women. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know it's doing the whole urban legend thing,
does not check out.
14,000 women.
Oh, it also says like that legend has it he was in 1,000 movies. He was actually in like 500-600. So I would just say probably chop the 14,000 into like 6,000. Even that, still kind of impressive.
Yeah.
But this plot description, it reminds me there needed to be a tagline that's just like, his day isn't the only long thing around here. Anyways.
There should have been, honestly. They should have had more fun with it. It's tough, though, because it's such a horrible thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I will say, it's a weird... I mean, getting into it, it's a movie about the Wonderland murders, right? Which... I guess I was thinking about this. I guess maybe not most people know about them, right? Because it's not like Tate Bianca.
I'm going to lay my own feet to the fire, as I usually say. That's something I often say is I will lay my own feet to the fire. I didn't know much about the Wonderland murders.
No, right. I was going to, but that makes sense though, because like, I'd seen this movie before, and I think the reason I had seen it was because I actually did like. So I can just, if you want me to jump into my initial thoughts?
Hold on, we gotta do a few more stuff.
Yeah, do it.
Written by James Cox and Captain Mausner and Todd Samovitz and D. Lauriston Scott. It took 4 people for this. My friend told me this is mostly based on a 1989 Rolling Stone article. I think it's called The Devil and John Holmes. This is directed by James Cox prior to this, Highway in 2002, after this Straight A's in 2013, and Billionaire Boys Club in 2018. Starring Val Kilmer as John Holmes prior to this, Top Gun in 1986, The Doors in 1991, Tombstone in 1993, Heat in 1995, Red Planet in 2000, feel like Red Planet. Well, no, hold on. Here we are. The Salton Sea in 2002. There you go.
There we go.
Yeah. After this, Spartan and Mindhunters in 2004. I feel like we're going to do Mindhunters as a future intermission episode. That's a nuts movie. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang in 2005. Deja Vu in 2006. Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call in New Orleans 2009. The Snowman in 2017. Moving on. Top Gun Maverick in 2022. Kate Bosworth as Dawn. Prior to this, Remember the Titans in 2000, Blue Crush and Rules of Attraction in 2002. Listen to our episode on Rules of Attraction. After this, Beyond the Sea in 2004, Superman Returns in 2005, 21 in 2008, the remake of Straw Dogs in 2011. I, for some reason, saw that in theaters. Still Alice in 2014, and last year, House of Darkness and Barbarian in 2022. Both with Justin Long, who I didn't know until last night that she's married to him.
She's in Barbarian?
I guess she's like the voice. She's like has a voice.
Because House of Darkness they made together. Yeah.
Right.
That's funny.
Derbil McDillett as David Lind. Prior to this, In the Line of Fire in 1993, Copycat in 1995, My Best Friend's Wedding in 1997, Three to Tango in 1999, Texas Rangers in 2001. After this, About Schmidt in 2002, Must Love Dogs in 2005, Perks of Being a Wallflower in 2012, and Scream 6 in 2023.
Well
Thank
done.
you. Thank you.
Very good. Worth it.
I had to rewatch that SNL skit. That is fucking just
It
top
is
tier.
great. Where Mulroney, he like is like, oh, Dylan McDermott. He's like, that's a picture of you. You're Dylan Mulroney. He's like, oh,
I've been sleeping with somebody else's wife.
yes, that's right. I've been sleeping with somebody.
My favorite thing is just like for our next one, Bill Hader's just like, who's this guy?
Who's this guy? Do you remember the Sudeikis one where he's like, your game shows, what is Burn Notice? Popular show. It's a popular show in USA. A lot of people like it. What is it? What's Burn Notice? And then it's just like nobody knows. He's like, a lot of people watch it. It's been on for 7 seasons. What's Burn Notice?
Oh goodness. Also starring goodness. Is this more stacked than Dogville?
No. Josh Lucas, Eric Bogosian.
I want to say
Faison,
no because
Frankie Faison, is that it?
Faison Love.
Faison Love.
I will say here.
Dogville is also an actual movie. Oops.
Oops.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Carrie Fisher.
Carrie Fisher, Josh Lucas, Ted Levine, Tim Blake Nelson, Janine Garofalo, Scoot McNairy, Christina Applegate, Faison Love, Eric Bogosian.
Applegate's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Lisa Kudrow, MC Gainey, Paris Hilton. And,
sure, the one moment. Sure.
And Max, who plays the dog named Thor. He needed a shout out.
Sure, Max.
See, you list all these people, and when the movie started, I was like, oh, Janine Garofalo's in this.
Yeah,
and then I had
scene,
to look up.
I know.
I had to look up.
I know.
If she was one of the murder victims, and she was.
Joy Miller, yeah. She owned the house. I
crazy.
think Joy Miller owned the house. Which is crazy.
That's insane.
I know. She's in one scene. She had cancer, right? She survived and became a drug addict. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to do.
I was reading about the real stuff. This is the point. It's like a lot of this isn't in the movie in any real way.
It's a 2-hour movie. Why isn't it?
No, I know. No, it's a problem.
Exactly.
It's a really big problem. No, I mean, look, it's a big missed opportunity, and it's weird that it comes so soon after Boogie Nights. It's just I could not get it out of my mind. I was like, why would you do this? Like, why would you do this? Like, I don't get it.
Right. Like,
Boogie Nights just got made. It, like, redefined independent cinema.
I'm only laughing because I just am imagining someone walking onto the set, and in this case, you, Dan, being like, why would you do this
well,
in the middle
it's
of
such a good story, right?
It is.
The 1 Million Murders, John Holmes, all that stuff, super interesting, well worth more than one film. But it's one of those things where it's like, but Paul Thomas Anderson kind of changed the game. Like, say what you want about Boogie Nights and whatever, but it was like a big deal. Like, it was a really, really big deal. And like the legs on it were long. It wasn't like, it got Burt Reynolds an Oscar nomination and then people forgot about Boogie Nights. It was like, then he made Magnolia and it was like, okay, this is one of our great living filmmakers. You know what I mean? And then you're James Cox.
Hell yeah.
You have a little bit of clout, right? Because you made if you don't know James Cox.
PTA, Cox.
But James Cox, if you don't know James Cox, right? He was a guy, he came out of NYU. He made a really good short called Atomic Tabasco. It's a good short. You can watch it on Vimeo. It's good. I rewatched it today. It holds up. Like, it's a kind of a brazen 12-minute feels like a kind of a cocaine drip thing, right? It's
like a
not
short
bad.
film calling card that used to be more of a thing. Yeah.
No, and very much so, and good. So you're like, great. And it gets like an award at Sundance 99. Then he like makes a Jared Leto movie called Highway with Jake Gyllenhaal. That's kind of fun. It's like crazy. It's a little like whatever. It's a goofy movie, kind of a crime thing. Young Leto, whatever. And like the cash in is this movie, you know? And it's like Val Kilmer still has a little bit of a little bit of clout. Bosworth's coming off of Blue Cross. You know, it's like, you know, old and new, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but if you're Cox, it's like, don't do this, dude. Like the Shadow of Boogie Nights is huge. It's like, I just don't get why. I don't know. It's just so confusing.
It's not like some like bombshell book came out and just like, oh, this has to be made into a movie.
Really.
Even though Boogie Nights just came out.
Like Don Schiller was writing something, as I understand it, when
and that came out in 2008.
Right.
Her book.
So like Schiller was like, okay. And like Susan Lanier, you know, whatever, you know, Josh Luke, Christina Applegate in the movie.
Yeah.
She lived, but like was not available. You know, she was the fifth victim who survived.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's like interesting unsolved stuff. Like you could make the movie now and it would be interesting, right? I think, you know, it's still interesting. John Holmes is interesting, right? He was the kind of the first porn star, you know, famously big member, right? That was the whole thing. His name was Johnny Watt. He played a detective, right? The Dirk Diggler stuff in Boogie Nights, that shit where he's like the detective with, what is it, John C. Reilly? Yeah. That's like Johnny Watt, right? It's like they're doing that.
I mean, even the Alfred Molina stuff that you get towards the end of that
He's Eddie Nash. He's just playing Eddie Nash.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, that's my point. It's like, he just fictionalized and just made it better, and he added other cool porn shit in it. So you're just, it's so stupid that you just would make this movie and then just literally just do it straight. And then the thing Cox does is he like tries to zhuzh it up with like editing, and there's some cool shit in it, and like
tries to Rashomon it.
Yeah, but the Rashomon thing comes like way too late.
Way too late.
It's way too late, and it's only split in half. Rashomon's three stories,
and McDermott is like, I mean, you joked about on Twitter, Kevin. It's like Moroni, where it's like
he looks like an SNL skit.
This guy, you're like, this is insane. Paul Lynde, who is like, you know, not Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? It's like just so funny. It's like nobody in this movie is like. That's the other part about the Wonderland murders. Just so the context is like John Holmes, famous porn star, drug addict, fell in hard times, would go to this house on Wonderland Avenue to score. These people live there. Joy Miller, Guy Lanius. What was his first name? Paul Lanius, and Ron Lanius. And then it was like the character Tim Blake Nelson plays, and then Paul Lynde comes in later. And there's a robbery. They rob Eddie Nash, who was like a gangster of some renown in that area. They fuck shit up. It goes kind of bad.
Playing. Yeah,
exactly. And then, but this is in real life. And then the Wonderland house gets hit, and it's the most heinous crime since the Tate LaBianca murders. 4 people get bludgeoned to death. It's like really horrible. And then a 5th victim, Susan, Ron's wife, survives, and then immediately implicated is Paul Lynde, who like wasn't there and was allegedly one of the targets. And then John Holmes, who like would always go to the house, and like Don Schiller kind of is with John. And so the whole movie is not, you know, the whole movie is just like presupposing what happened in that house,
right?
What John Holmes' involvement was. And so basically what they set up is like Paul Lynde tells one story, John Holmes tells another. And then at the end, they kind of like suggest a third. But it's not formatted where in a way that would be Rashomon effective, right?
Right.
To Charlie and your point.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just weird. It's like Kilmer's good. You know, this is kind of the last Kilmer moment as a leading man. He's Salton Sea and this are kind of the last gasp.
Wait. Not a hit, but Spartan is one of his best performances and best films.
04. He's amazing at Spartan.
When you were gone, we talked about that in Mindhunters, just so you know. It's all good.
Okay, good.
No, but Spartan...
I'm glad that...
No, you're right. Spartan, he's
that
amazing.
my presence was felt in my absence.
Yes, I love Spartan. Love Spartan. Mammoth movie. Very good. But that's kind of the last lead role, right? I mean, he's supporting Val from then on out. So this is really the last gasp of Val Kilmer, movie star. And the poster's good. It's like his jean crotch. It's kind of a fun poster.
It's
like
kind of it looks like Sticky Fingers by Rolling Stones, except with a gun.
On purpose, I think. Yeah, and I think
yeah.
So like I think James Cox is a interesting stylist, right? Like I don't think he's necessarily a bad. I think he can make a good movie. Right, like I think Highway's almost a good movie, and then I think Straight A's is not. I have to say, and then this is not, as we've kind of been alluding to, and then I never saw Billionaire Boys Club, but it literally stars Kevin Spacey and Ansel Elgort. It just got dumped.
Did anyone see that movie?
Well, no, because I think the Spacey stuff happened when it was coming out.
Yeah, it was 2018.
So it just got dumped.
So yeah.
Yeah, nobody saw that movie, and he was probably
yeah. So I mean, he's had some bad luck, James Cox, and I think whatever. I mean, he's made some music videos, but it's just like this movie is just a curio. I mean, you hate to say it, because it's like so many people work so hard on these things, but it's like that's all I could think about watching it. You know what I mean? I was just like, and like Kilmer's good. I think Kudrow's really good.
She's never bad. Never bad.
Yeah.
She's
always been underrated and is very good here. We can all agree the best friend. I mean, God knows.
Like, I was saying in our group chat that like Friends didn't deserve her. That's how good she is.
Yeah, like I've always stand whatever the kids say for
Marcy X
for
Romeo and
Matt,
Michelle
for Matt. No, just for another friend. I've always kind of defended or stood for Matthew Perry. I like him. And I always like Chandler. The gay panic stuff's really tough when you rewatch those episodes. But like the comedy of the Chandler Bing character is like my type of comedy. Like I like it, the sarcasm and whatever. But like in terms of their careers, right? Obviously Aniston's had an incredibly successful career, but like Kudrow's had this like very fun, interesting, nuanced career. The comeback, right? Like
a lot of stuff where she is involved behind the scenes type shit.
That too, yeah. And I think even Clock Watchers. I mean, she was still in film when she made Clock Watchers.
Clock Watchers, she's amazing. Even Romeo in Michelle, Neighbors, which I want to say she's in like 7 minutes of. Neighbors, she steals every scene.
No, she's great. Neighbors.
She's in Neighbors.
She's in the principal in Easy A. She's in 2 scenes. She's great in Easy A. You're right. She's rarely bad, if ever bad. So I think like here she's great, and look, Kate Bosworth. I mean,
I was saying in our group chat, I was just like, she has the face that has watched MTV. She can't play somebody from the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, I feel bad. I don't know. I mean, when has she been good? Rules of Attraction. Maybe,
and that's the thing is like I haven't seen Blue Crush.
She's
Rules
good
of
in Blue
Attraction,
Crush, right? Sure.
I forgot she was in Rules of Attraction, but
She's
to be fair,
barely
I've forgotten a lot of Rules of Attraction. I do remember her in Superman Returns, which I haven't seen since it was in theaters in 2006. And it's like I don't trust that
I just rewatched
teenage perspective. Okay, so she's not good.
It's not a great performance. I'm sorry.
I mean, like, I'm not even a Superman fanatic, so I don't know what Lois Lane is supposed to be like, but I just remember her being kind of a wet blanket in that movie.
Well, yeah, Margot Kidder had a zest, right? Like, that's the thing about Lois Lane. Like, she's incorrigible, right? Like, that's the thing about, what do I know about what do I know about Superman? I don't give a shit about it. But like Margot Kidder was like, I hate this word, but she was spunky. She was she was like, a rule breaker. She smoked cigarette, all these things. And it's like,
she was in Black Christmas. Kate Bosworth wasn't.
Black Christmas.
She stabbed Superman in the face on his birthday in a Brian De Palma film. We all know that.
They take so much out of the character. I don't even know that it's Bosworth's fault. They really limp down that character in Returns. I like Returns. I think it's actually a very good movie, but like the Lois Lane part is really a bad part of that movie, I think.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I can't say anything about Kate Bosworth is like I've seen her in so little, and what I've seen her in
I do think she's good in Straw. You brought up Straw Dogs, Kevin. I do actually think she's good in Straw Dogs. I actually do think she's good in that. I don't love that movie, but I think she's doing.
I haven't seen Still Alice. Is she good in Still Alice?
I don't remember her in Still
she
Alice,
must
but
be a
the only thing I
daughter,
remember, the only things I remember about Still Alice was Julianne Moore's giving it her all, and so is Kristen Stewart, and that's it. That was 9 years ago.
But,
just real quick, you got your initial thoughts. I got to get through trivia real quick.
Oh, sorry, please.
You're fine. You're fine. Trivia. In the movie, Val Kilmer as John Holmes wears a chain around his neck that holds a ring. The ring was the actual wedding band that John Holmes gave his wife Sharon when they got married in 1965. Sharon loaned it to Val to give him good luck on the movie. When the movie was over, Sharon then gave the ring to Don Schiller, which the big text at the end says that they've been, friends, yeah. Both Josh Lucas and Val Kilmer spent the night in the actual Wonderland house on the anniversary of the murders. Couldn't pay me to do that. Christina Applegate grew up near the site of the Wonderland murders and remembers seeing the bloody mattresses on the street, which led her to agreeing to take a relatively small role in the film.
Wow, that's actually that is good trivia. That's interesting.
Yeah, that I looked up. That I looked up on IMDb.
Because Applegate is an LA kid. Yeah, that's interesting. I would not have known
that's
that.
insane.
Yeah, that is
also,
insane.
she would go off to do Anchorman less than a year later, and good for her.
Great.
Yeah, seriously.
She's great on it. When the movie played at the TIFF, one of the promotional items handed out was a ruler that was 13.5 inches. That's
there you go. Okay,
I'm going to look that up on eBay. That's great.
/ production company.
Hi, everybody. I'm John Holmes.
Wait, who's John Holmes?
Holmes is one of the biggest stars in the X-rated film industry.
In the summer of 1981, the Hollywood Hills was the place to be.
Life is just too good.
The party couldn't get any hotter.
LA in the summer, anything can happen.
The nights couldn't get any longer.
The money or the guns in 2 days.
And he couldn't get any bigger.
You want to see it?
Yeah.
Sure, John.
I'm his girl.
What happened, John?
I had to, Sharon. I had no choice.
The Southland is in shock today over a series of brutal killings that occurred here on Wonderland Avenue early today.
You are in grave danger.
Where you want to go?
Anywhere. Everywhere!
Did you go back to Wonderland?
You're gonna do to those guys on Wonderland what you did to me.
Eddie Nash has got a gun to your knee and he says he's gonna kill your wife. What would you do?
Val Kilmer, Kate Bosworth, Josh Lucas, Dylan McDermott, Lisa Kudrow.
But I'm gonna tell you a story. A story called Wonderland.
In the climactic murder scene from the John Holmes perspective, there are several single-frame shots of the actual corpses from the 1981 LAPD crime scene photographs.
I hated that.
That's not good.
Hated that.
That's
hated.
Not good.
Let me just underline it.
How'd you feel?
Hated that.
Okay.
Hated it so much. I was like, do not do this. Do not do. Filmmakers, do not do this. I was like, why?
I can't think of another.
Why would you do this?
I don't.
They were people who got brutalized. Why are you like shocked?
Can I also maybe this is jumping too far ahead, but like there's a lot of people of color committing these heinous acts. I was like, if they've never been proven, like why were we doing that anyway?
Well, yeah, because it was part Eddie Nash's gang. Well, I guess you would have to look into like...
But we've never proven it.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, you're right. You're not wrong.
It's like one of those things where I was like...
Even though Eddie Nash did, if you look it up, it's in the end of the movie, right? Eddie Nash did admit to the conspiracy to commit the Wonderland murders.
Yeah.
In whatever year that was. Which is interesting.
And then he
only served less. He was out in like less than 2 years.
Jesus. Okay.
But he was like he got arrested for like many other things. It was like he like plead down to all these different charges, and one of them was like conspiring to right. That was the main thing, and I think one of the other things was like conspiring to commit the Wonderland murders, which is interesting. So he had some involvement. Ultimately, he admitted to it. But like, yeah, you're right. It's like when you're getting into this weird thing, there's so much charged language in this movie. It's like very like you're like, okay, can we?
Yeah.
Move along?
As far as the tastelessness with the crime scene photos, also the DVD
Dermot Mulroney very much at the tip of the spear.
McDermott was going nuts. But as far as the tastelessness, I have the DVD, which it was a brand new DVD that I bought for like $2, and it wouldn't work because the first one had disc rot. But the second disc has one of the special features is just straight up the crime scene footage, and I'm just like, that's I just think,
yeah, to me that stuff is like, I get it, I guess, in theory, but I'm just like, I just feel like there's some sort of line. I don't know. Like,
it was like special features, deleted scenes, actual dead people.
Yeah, to make up your point, Kevin, I did that thing where I literally Googled, and I hate myself for doing this, does Wonderland 2003 feature actual crime scene photos? And then I got a bunch of websites that were like, do not look here if you want to see awful things. Yeah. And I'm like, why is this, Yeah,
because it really was, it was, it was really terrible. It was really terrible.
I did look at the footage because I just have morbid curiosity.
I did too.
But the video footage, that was the first time that they ever used camera to shoot a crime scene. So that's nifty. Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
Once again, this was filmed in 18 days, which is pretty surprising.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That does make me respect the movie a little bit more, I will say.
Pretty nuts.
That's kind of insane.
$5 million with 18 days. That's pretty...
Yeah, and a really high profile... They must have really just been running and gunning. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, as far as post-production goes, Lionsgate was not sure how to market this film due to the significant drug content,
that is
intermediate porn reference, and brutal violence depicted. The content in question remained, but the film then was only given a limited theatrical release in domestic market for awards consideration. I feel like you should have thought about that before you bought the movie, but that's just me.
Well, it's weird, too, that it got a TIFF premiere and an Oscar-positioned release, very much banking on a strong TIFF premiere, which they didn't get, right? Yeah. But if you had gotten it, it's the Michael Clayton thing of Michael Clayton came out of nowhere and got 1 million nominations, right? So it's some years at TIFF. I think this is less common now, but
we could list off a ton of things that are different between Michael Clayton and this movie.
No. But my point is just platform-wise, TIFF
right.
for a while.
TIFF didn't do anything for it.
It's changed a bit now as we record. It's different now. But in those years, right, those early aughts, a common move was premiere it at TIFF, drop it a month later, and you might get some real Oscar traction.
Buzz, yeah.
And the movie I always think of is Michael Clayton, because it was that movie just was a surprise. It was just kind of oh, this is a great movie, and then all of a sudden it got 7 nominations, right? So I think this is just the example of how that can go really bad, because it was the opposite. It got a bad reception, came out, and never platformed really. Nobody cared about it. It was just kind of the opposite,
Yeah. Speaking of reception, Charlie, didn't you read Ebert's review, which is just this taught me nothing?
Well,
Ebert was I knew John Holmes. This is
to back up a little bit, I have to give Bryden, who is not here, credit, because
Bryden,
I was texting Kevin and Bryden, and I at one point paused this movie and was astonished to see that I was 55 minutes in, and I was I don't know who anybody is. I don't know what is supposed to be compelling. I know what the crime is.
Sure.
I don't know what the dramatic tissue is supposed to be. And then Bryden in our group chat put, Ebert wrote the same thing. That he literally didn't know what had happened in this movie.
It's a very weirdly structured movie.
Yeah. So Bryden led me to the Ebert review, and I was kind of okay, good. I'm not a dum-dum, basically. Because I did kind of watch this movie without interruption for a good... I'm pretty sure I sent a few text messages here and there to Kevin and Bryden, and then I was kind of okay, I'm along for the ride. And then I was kind of I don't... What? It's all style, which... A movie, I don't want to go onto this podcast and say a movie cannot be style as substance, but this movie is so abrasive in its style and frenetic editing, and to spin the narrative in such a way that does intentionally recall Rashomon without any of the sense of what made Rashomon important, much also Ebert mentioned in his review. So God. But like, there's no hook into this, which, again, it's a real crime story that I know very little about, but it's just very edgelordy in the way that it tells this story.
Yeah, it feels like it's searching for a hook.
It's searching for a hook and it's searching for purpose, but shocking, controversial history does not a good movie make, and like it's just kind of depending on that, and it's kind of made me sad to see such a cast. Like Kilmer, Kevin, we were also talking where I was like, Kilmer's actually really good, and you were like, he hasn't even really shown up yet until like an hour into the movie, and then he has scenes that are like, oh, this would have dramatic weight if this movie was about him, but instead it's about Dylan Mulroney, who's like just Dylan Mulroney?
McDermott, but we were just joking.
Dylan McDermott.
Yeah, either.
Jesus.
Yeah. Could be either or though.
Would have had weight, but like, why does this movie,
I think,
even depend on his perspective?
Well,
in terms of a Rashomon thing, because it doesn't really add up to anything when you see whoever throws the fucking piece of shit out the window.
Yeah, I think, look, I hate, me and Connor talk about this on our podcast. Like, I hate doing the thing of like rewriting a movie, but I'm gonna do it right now.
No, I felt the exact same way. I want to hear your version.
I'm gonna do it right now.
Yep.
I was writing Wonderland.
If I was James Cox,
we all do it. If I was writing Wonderland, James, give me a call. What I would do. And who knows if this would work, obviously, and maybe he considered this. I would do it like The Informant, right? The Soderbergh movie, which is to say, do the movie from Holmes's point of view, but then make it clear that this is an untrustworthy narrator.
Yes.
And then in your third act, break it apart, right? So like if you've seen The Informant, he's lying, right? And you're pretty clear he's lying. And that's a comedy, and it's different, but I'm just referencing the structure. And then at a certain point in The Informant, Melanie Linsky, I believe is the wife, is like, stop lying, right? Like, stop lying. And the movie, like, stops and becomes a different movie, right? Where, like, he can no longer lie, right? Do that. Like, that's interesting. Like, he seems like an interesting guy. Like, he's maybe one of the worst people who ever lived. Like, the movie basically ends with him being like a coward, a rat, a murderer. You're like, oh, so John Holmes should be burning in hell forever and ever, right? Like, so if you're gonna end with that, why do the subterfuge of like, who gives a fuck about, no offense to Dylan McDermott, who cares about Paul Lynde? Like you said, like, just, anyway, that would be how I would approach it. Who knows if it would work, but that was what I was thinking, yeah.
No, I completely agree with you, because the Dylan McDermott character has the exact same mindset as Val Kilmer's perspective on this thing, but it doesn't matter because... And
you have stuff like Ted Levine believes, like, why does the detective believe Paul Lynde? It's like, it doesn't make sense. Anyway, sorry.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, why have this structure when nobody has a differing perspective? And the movie also... I'm not saying it empathizes with their, morally bankrupt type of perspective. It might be trying to do that thing, but like Josh Lucas shows up and he's basically like a straight-laced version of, I know this movie came out 10 years after this, but like it's basically, he's doing the James Franco look at my shit thing in Spring Breakers. Like he's literally doing that with the guns. And it even starts with the whole Kate Bosworth going to Carrie Fisher's house, and you're like, oh, Carrie Fisher's in this movie, and then that scene's played for laughs as her being like devil worshippers, so you're kind of like, oh, these people are bad, and there's gonna be like, people to play off of, where there are normal people in this story that don't react to this, and even they are heightened, and then like, no, you don't even have those people to counteract with. It's all kind of monotonous and samey, and also, I mean, we joked about Boondock Saints off of this mic, but I don't mean to be that person, but it did kind of feel Boondock Saints-y.
It's got that vibe. Yeah, it's got that millennium vibe. Yeah, it's got that millennium sheen of like, edgelord. You said the word. It's like it has that like turn of the millennium edgelordy thing.
Yeah.
where you're kind of like, relax. You're like, relax, James.
I literally it's funny you mentioned that, Dan. I literally sent to Kevin and Brad and I said, this movie needs to calm down.
Yeah,
and and then I even thought, like, well, like, what makes something like Wolf of Wall Street not, like, that movie is 3 hours and that, like, never calms down, but it's like, but Scorsese has a thesis and a point here, and this point is just like I'm not saying you have to, it's trying to have that manic energy but with no thesis, with no like through point, where the actors are lost at sea. Val Kilmer is just acting his ass off. You know, this has been a Twitter point as of late, is a movie doesn't have to have a plot. I don't care if it has a plot, but you have to have a through line of, like, it can't just be vibes and then something bad happens. Everything about this confused me. I didn't even really know, much like, I mean, Kevin and Danny mentioned Roger Ebert's review, I didn't know what happened at the end of the movie or how it happened. I got that some people robbed Eric Bogosian and then he sent people to rob them back. But, like, what am I supposed to take away from this thematically other than violence and drugs and sex and all that? Like I could get that from any other movie. I've seen a bunch of other movies. Like, we brought up Lisa Kudrow. All of the stuff with her character where she's been with Val Kilmer in the past and she's on good terms with Kate Bosworth. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting subplot where you could think of, and I know it's based on fact, but, like, that's really interesting that she cares about her. She's not jealous, like, and I know that's insane to, like, I'm not trying to say that, why isn't she jealous, as if this is some patriarchal bullshit, but, like, that's interesting. How did she get that relationship? How did she get that relationship with Kilmer or Holmes? Like, and the movie doesn't care. It doesn't care. It just keeps going. Yeah. And it's like, So I was just left completely flummoxed, baffled, frustrated, just hands up in the air. What did I even, like, what am I supposed to do?
It is interesting. Kind of it's interesting that Natasha Gregson Wagner is one of the victims because she's Natalie Wood's daughter. So it's just kind of an interesting...
They don't mention that at all either.
I'm just saying, like, she's barely in the movie, but she's Barbara Richardson, who was killed in the Wonderland murders. But it's just interesting that, like, Natalie Wood herself in real life is part of this kind of, half scandal, her death in real life, blah, blah, blah. And just having her daughter be in this movie about another Hollywood tragedy is interesting, like, in theory. But once again... It amounts to very little. I mean, in a more interesting way, I guess this is me saying, like, I liked how Tarantino and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood had a lot of the Manson family be children of celebrities. Was like a clever little wink, like, that's cute. And I think you get 10% of that with Natasha Gregson Wagner?
I didn't even care for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but it made me appreciate that movie more because it really made me think, what was the intent? What was the purpose of making this? Because really all I'm left with is ugliness.
Yeah, that's
I don't know what I'm supposed to take away.
So brutally. I just think it's like, I guess it's hard. But look, this is what's hard about stuff. It's like, it is sometimes hard to know what works and what doesn't. Like, because, look, Boogie Nights has incredibly wild tonal changes that are, like, shocking, right? So it's like, but it works, right? And it's like, why does it work? And you can go down the rabbit hole of why, and you can get, so it's like, I think it really is just how you're handling your material. And I think so much of what Cox, who once again is a talented guy, like, he's just, it's like the wrapping paper is fancy, but then, like, the present is, like, really fucked up, right? And there's nothing connecting those two things. That's the problem. Like, if nothing is connecting those two things, it's gonna feel garish.
Boogie Nights has a lot of explicit sex, violence, drug use, what have you, but ultimately, and I know they're aiming for two completely different things aesthetically and in terms of what they're trying to say cinematically, but Boogie Nights, what makes the tonal changes work is you get a bunch of outsiders who all feel kind of neglected by society or their own actual biological families that form their own chosen family. And here, if they focused, and again, I'm doing what you did, Dan, like if I made this movie, I would have done that thing where like it's that thing where it's like, but what led these people to this moment? I understand that climactic implosions of violence, whether they're fictionalized in film or based on actual true crimes that have happened and you represent them on film, those can be exciting, but like, or provocative or horrifying or anything, but like, what are we supposed to get out of this?
There's not a lot to grab onto,
No, Boogie Nights, you got Mark Wahlberg dealing with his family life, you got Julianne Moore, who's chosen a career that separated her from her son, you know, you've got Roller Girl, you've got Don Cheadle, you've got everybody who's, it's all chaotic, but even in that very stylized Robert Altman, Martin Scorsese homage style of epic, you know, intertwining ensemble piece filmmaking, they all feel real. This is trying to be gritty, and you care about them, and this is it's just supposed to be the grittiness and the...
Look, literally, Val Kilmer, speaking about bringing back to Val Kilmer, this same time period, and Kevin, you brought it up, certainly not a perfect movie either, but even in the Salton Sea, which is about speed freaks, right, who commit crimes, right? It was, I think, DJ Caruso's, like, debut movie. Like, it's a movie I like quite a bit. Has not aged well, I don't think. We talked about it with Katie Walsh, I think. But even in that movie, that like the speed gang, right? Like the gang of drug addicts, like you do get to know them. And you do care about the Peter Sarsgaard character, right? And there's an anchor to the movie that if you get into the movie, it'll at least keep you invested in like something, right? And I just think you don't get that ever because it's not Holmes, and the movie doesn't want it to be Holmes, right? And it's not Dawn Schiller because she's not involved, which is like such a thing. I mean, it's like she's not even, you know, Bosworth, we were kind of dogging on her earlier, but it's like, once again, not really her fault. It's like the Dawn Schiller element is like kind of, she's not really involved. It's like, and so like, who are you rooting for? Who do you care about? It's like characters don't need to be good people in movies, but like to your point, you need to have something of like, what does this person want? If it's just heroin, you're like, okay, well, like, what are we talking about? And so, like, it's not the Josh Lucas character. It's not Bogosian. He's not in a lot of the movie, right? It's like not, Lord knows it's not Dylan McDermott. So it just, it's just a bummer. It just doesn't really work on any real level.
It's a huge bummer. Yeah.
It doesn't really work.
Is there, I'm trying to think if there is a film where it just kind of drops you in and the context of the film itself in a crime film just kind of, just through dialogue or body language. I mean, there's been a million of them. I'm not thinking of any of them off the top of my head right now, but like there have been films like that. Why does this one not? I guess just the way this film doesn't work is it's too preoccupied with the yellow color filters and the frenetic editing and the way that the story's told out of order, where it's like, why are you even telling the story this way?
Yeah, I don't...
Like, you know? Like, it doesn't serve any purpose. It's just to make it look
reminds
cool.
me of... What it reminded me of is, you know, so when Soderbergh made The Limey, right? Which would have been a couple years before this.
Hell yeah.
Which is a movie I love, right? One of my favorite Soderbergh movies. When they made it in the editing room, they put it together and they realized it was incredibly boring. And so Soderbergh was like, ooh, fuck, like I made this thriller that's just not very thrilling. Like, what are we going to do? And they developed that editing style that's in The Limey where they're kind of overlapping scenes onto each other, right? So there's kind of this premonition-like quality.
Yeah.
If you know that movie, right? It's beautiful, right?
Shout out to Sarah Flack, the editor.
100%. It really should be taught in editing classes. It's like a genius solve, right? And it really adds the exact tension that Soderbergh himself said the movie was lacking, right? It literally seems like James Cox is trying to find that here and just doesn't, right? Like that's just what I kept thinking about watching it. I was like, he's just like, okay, maybe we do it this way. Maybe add a little bit of this. Maybe, you know, split screen it, you know, wipe here, blah, 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 blah. And it's just, I hate the phrase, but it's kind of polishing a turd, right? It's just like, you know, it's just not enough. As Rebecca Ferguson sang in The Greatest Showman, it's never enough.
It's never enough. That's
never,
true.
Never enough. Iconic,
Yeah. Kevin, have we even gotten into your initial thoughts? I'm sorry.
No.
Kevin's just chilling, dude.
I don't have.
I wanted you to just say what you said for.
Well, and I was
for Cat's Meow.
Oh yeah, it was fine. No, it was worse than fine. It was actually not good. But no, I was just communicating with Bryden because the reason he's not here is I told him, hey, do some research, and he took that as he's gonna solve the Wonderland murder.
Oh shit, he's solving it.
That's why he's
that's
not
cool.
here. So that's
a sequel, Wonderland 2.
Yeah.
Two Wonder,
Revenge.
Two Land. Bryden's Revenge.
But yeah, it's not good. I do love that literally every 5 seconds somebody, that guy or that gal pops up, and that counts for something.
And they immediately leave.
Immediately get out of there.
Christina Applegate's like, I'm in this movie. I will see you later. I will be battered beyond recognition, and the movie will end. I'm not gonna
lie. When the camera was zooming into her eye that is not bandaged, I went, "Is that Christina Applegate?" And then I was like, "Oh my god, it is!"
I know, but that's this movie. It's that.
Well, and here's the thing: I will critique mostly just the ending because the crime scene photos inclusions aside, and I do understand that the woman who did survive and was the only survivor basically said, "I don't remember anything. It was a bunch of shadows." So I understand that, but that also, it's kind of shot that way where it's really dark, you can't really see anything, it's really phonetic. But you would think, because I was messaging Charlie and I was just like, this is kind of nothing, and it makes me feel bad that I'm like, get to the murders, because that's just not a good way to think. But when it got to it, I was like, this is just really a mishmash of fucking nothing. So I couldn't even be like, wow, that really leaves you being like, wow, what happened? It was just like, now it left me being like, shit, what do we do with this? And then it just made me afterwards be like, oh, well, that's like a story and you told it. Okay. It's nothing like where it's just like, holy shit. Like, of course, people lost their life. That's terrible and whatnot, but that doesn't, everybody who loses their life does not make a compelling story, unfortunately. So it's the thing of, even if, I mean, they could make a completely different movie and I could be like, wow, what a harrowing thing that explains the ills of late 70s, early 80s culture, blah, 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 blah. But I'm not getting that here, and I'm just getting like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that is weird that like a big porn star got involved in like some murders, but okay, well, that's great.
But even is it that weird? Like, I don't think that's that weird.
That's what I'm saying. And like, where it's just like, okay. Remember that guy that had a fucking big
no strides.
He may have gotten into a murder. Okay, well,
it takes no strides to like connect it to larger things, which is like once again another thing.
It connects to larger things. His name is Johnny Watt.
Hey now, Johnny Watt. It's like, but it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't take any strides to connect to larger themes, right? Which is like Boogie Nights is all about that. It's like changing of the guard, right? Like, the industry literally, Burt Reynolds not understanding his time is up, right? Like there's so many like tributaries that like billow off of Boogie Nights, right? Where you can like go this way, go that way. You can connect it to history. And ironically, this is like they're using the real names. It's about the Wonderland murders, and it's like very much less than, which is
to
just,
the point that it's even unintentionally funny. And I felt bad because Lisa Kudrow's giving it her all, and Val Kilmer's giving it her all, his all in this scene. But the scene where she's like, "You gave it all up for that thing," and then it just camera on Val Kilmer's crotch, like him grabbing the crotch, and I'm like, I'm not saying that it didn't happen this way necessarily, but the way it's being filmed is like, it's like a cartoon, but with like grimy 90s filter, like that type of thing.
I think if anything, it's crazy that, and maybe they didn't do it because Boogie Nights did it, but like, you probably should show it, right? If the whole movie's about that. Boogie Nights had the good sense to end the movie with it, which I think is the right call, because it's like, look, the whole movie's about it. It's like you kind of need to acknowledge it in a bigger way. I mean, no pun intended, but like...
No, it's a good point, because there's one scene that I was kind of like, and I know this is very 2023, like, speak here, I'm not expecting anything that... But, like, there is a moment where Josh Lucas is literally pointing a gun at Val Kilmer's pants and goes,
"It's like, show him." Yeah, it's all the girls.
Take it out, show him. And I'm not, and they don't show it. And then another woman who her only speaking part is basically, "Can I touch it?"
Yeah.
And in another movie that was focusing on the real figure and Val Kilmer, like, it would be like, this is a really kind of like either demeaning or like whatever. There's a lot of complicated emotions going through that here,
Right.
but the scene isn't really about that. It's about how tense is that Josh Lucas is pointing a gun to his fucking dick.
Yeah.
And then a woman gets to touch it. You know, like, the focus is all wrong. It's just about shock value.
Yeah, it's a good microcosm of the whole movie.
Yeah, and then it gets down to it. I mean, yeah, Kevin, you mentioned it. Like, when the crime scenes were happening during the actual murders, that's when I really, like, lost respect for this movie, because I'm not saying you can't show actual crime scene photos and anything. I mean, like, OJ Made in America, the great ESPN 30 for 30 documentary, you know.
That's different. That's
a different
This is used
thing.
here to be like subliminally be like, oh, shock.
Subliminally.
Yeah.
It's like fucking Captain Howdy in The Exorcist or some shit. It's like really gross, you know? It just made me feel... I texted everybody last night.
Yeah, it's like the cigarette. It's like the Spike Up cigarette burn thing on purpose, you know?
Yeah, and it's just like, you don't have any respect or any... Like, you don't even have the respect to provide these people with any interiority. And I don't give a shit. I'm not saying you have to do it.
Was in that one scene.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It made me feel...
Joy. Where'd you go, Joy? Just, you know, look, didn't work. You know? Just didn't work, James.
Just didn't work.
Sorry, James. Didn't work. I do hope, I will say, for James Cox, because he had some bad luck with Billionaire Boys Club, I hope he makes another movie. Like...
Okay.
Do you?
Know, yeah, I just, because, like, I like Highway and Atomic Tabasco, and I just always think it's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm always rooting for any filmmaker who, it's got to be hard, man. I don't know. I bet he really thought this one was going to go, you know, and it really didn't. It's like, there's a string of failed Kilmers, man. Red Planet, this, Spartan, shamefully, I mean, did really bad, even though it's great. Salton Sea didn't do that well. You know, it's like they all kind of, they died. Yeah, died on the vine.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Almost Major. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Please follow the pod on Twitter at Almost Major to keep up to date with what movies we will be covering in the future. Myself, I can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at Kev Bonesy. Bryden can be found on Twitter at Bryden Doyle and on Letterboxd at J Doyle. Charlie can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at CT Nash91. Once again, thank you for listening.